or like mounting gargoyles on the corner? Like, what are we doing to make sure it's more secure than a standard wall would be?
So spikes are nice, but does the concept of like barbed wire or razor wire exist?
Probably.
We have children on the grounds.
That is a very aggressive wall.
I think
So I would like to get some input from the family of how much they want to sacrifice safety for security.
So-
we're literally in the middle of the city. We are.
And we have children and animals on the grounds.
Yeah.
Might I suggest always having a family member who has a familiar patrolling? I mean, there's got to be half a dozen hawks circling around our manor, just as a matter of course.
When you broach the subject with Ruby, Ruby is de facto in charge.
Yeah.
When you broach the subject with Ruby and tell her that you're thinking about putting coils of barbed wire on the wall, she tells you if you do that, she's going to make sure that you get wrapped up in it. And then she immediately turns to exasperated to one of her other 50 things she's trying to get done today.
Like, I'll give Lux a shift of keeping an eye on the house, but I think everyone should do that with their familiar.
Yeah, I think.
So, yeah, so we definitely want some sort of familiar patrol, if not having some of the servants kind of standing by every now and then.
Okay.
But so if Ruby doesn't like the idea of barbed wire, how does she feel about a nice iron gate with nice tall spikes?
Like a determined. Listen, like you know this, I know this. A determined thief or a determined invader is going to get in. It's about deterring like the casual acts.
It's about the illusion of security.
I need to stress again, there are children on the grounds. You do not put big scary spikes around kids. You just
So
No,
would you suggest a white picket fence?
I mean,
Some of the houses do have just small decorative fences like that. They
I
just
don't
kind of
think that's
delineate
actually
the
such a
boundary.
bad idea.
I think
Look, we're looking to become big players in the city, right? In the great holy city. We should be inviting to our allies.
Here's what Evie's going to do. She's going to look around and see how the other manors tend to defend their holdings. What kind of defenses is standard, is fashionable in the city.
So what does House Oleander do?
Well, House Oleander has two sets of walls, because they have the walls of the castle keep, the original castle keep, but then they also have their manor would be something like here. And no, they have large stone walls with an iron rod. Gate.
Okay, so then considering other houses that would be with our relative station, keeping in mind the family's desire to fit in, what are other houses of relative station to ours doing in terms of their fencing situation?
Runs the gamut. Some have large stone walls that you can't see through. Others maintain small waist-high gates. Some of them hire on men-at-arms to patrol the boundaries. Some of the major houses don't operate out of a giant manor at all. They just have their small apartments somewhere close to their business. There really is no right or wrong way to do it.
Except barbed wire.
Nothing wrong with barbed wire.
Nigel
There are
has
a few
story about
things
one
wrong.
time where the barbed wire came to life and they had to fight it off, and it was exceptionally harrowing.
animated barbed wire would be terrifying.
So given that we have children, and we would like some privacy for the children, maybe like a 6-foot stone wall with nice little ornamental pillars that are somewhat inviting, and then lighting on the inside, so that if somebody does get over the wall, at least it's visible and they could easily be seen.
What do you think? What do you think Ruby will say if I propose mounting ballista on the corners?
Probably she would tell you to get those ballistas off her walls.
Victor supports this idea, though.
Just tiny ballistas.
Safe to say there are no other manor houses that have weaponry mounted.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna fly here in town.
How many other houses have a artificer forwarding the repair of it?
Oh,
Probably most
many
of them.
So maybe the
On
compromise.
that note, how reasonable is it to get continual flame lanterns all over the premises on the outside?
If you have somebody that can cast continual flame.
No, we don't. That's what I mean. What would it
Yeah,
involve to hire someone with that ability?
You hire somebody at the standard spellcasting cost.
Okay.
So we do like
Budget.
a 6-foot stone wall with continual flame lanterns around it, and then that wall can attach to or surround the tower. And then on top of the tower, then we can talk about a ballista.
A
on top of that-
discreet ballista, perhaps.
No,
A
no, no.
concealed ballista?
On
If you
top
guys
of
are talking about a ballista, Evie has nothing to do with this conversation. She just walks away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Ekon too.
like,
So
Eugenia just thinks ballistas are cool.
you all are
not
going about
my-
your tasks, and safe to say that you all have house servants seeing to these tasks along with you. So the next question I have for each of you, we'll start again with Jeannie. In general, how do you treat your servants?
Treat them well. I mean, I'm not mean to them. I treat them like employees. I mean, they're generally hired to do their job, but I'm not cruel
They're
to
not
them or
hired
anything.
for anything. They're sworn to serve your house.
I know, but they have a job, and I treat them like employees. Like, I'm polite to them.
So you're,
The one exception is probably my like my personal one, who is like I hired him to like he was hired to be an assistant to my bullshit. So he's only lost one finger so far.
so who is your attendant? What's his name?
Order.
And he's lost
name
one
is-
finger in your service?
Yeah, just the pinky. It's fine. He
Was it
didn't need that.
Was it your fault?
Uh,
If Porter was asked to speak freely, would he say it's your fault?
no.
Would he say
I'm gonna
no
say-
and then quickly look to see if you're watching him?
Probably.
Okay. So he lives in
Like-
constant fear?
No. Like I said, I don't treat him bad. It's just he assists me with things like machinery and things. So he just was just lost a finger one
I
day.
noticed that you haven't lost a finger.
Correct. Because I'm not strong enough to lift anything, and that's why Porter's there.
How does Edmont treat his servants?
Pretty distantly, because none of them know how to scrap.
And who is your attendant?
His name is. I have this written down, and
Good.
I tabbed away from my character sheet. It is Josias. His name is Josias. He's a trained scribe.
So he's probably not enjoying his current tasks of seeing like these animals safely secured, mucking out stables and whatnot.
Probably not. No.
Why do you have a scribe as your attendant?
It just seemed like a good idea in my brain,
Okay.
in the player's brain.
That's all they could spare to send with him to
Yeah.
watch Ekon.
Well, I guess my question
Actually, I
is,
think it's
Edmund-
more like Ekon is watching over Edmont at this point.
Does Edmund have particular use for a scribe specifically? Or is this just a relationship he's happened to fall into and he's not too particular about who his attendant is?
Probably the latter, yeah. He's not really too particular about it.
How does Victor treat his servants?
Victor treats his servants probably a little too well.
Meaning what?
He's very appreciative of them. He always tries to be nice to them. Occasionally, one of them might get an extra day off because they just ask for it, and Victor just can't tell them no all the time.
Who is Victor's attendant?
Victor's attendant is a lovely man named Oliver.
That's his main character trait. He's lovely.
No, so he was Victor's tutor when he was a kid. He's an older gentleman, like 57. And then briefly after Victor's parents died, Oliver was, consoling him and taking care of him until he, went under Uncle Nigel's wing full time.
Okay.
Oliver generally accompanies Victor when he goes on expedition because despite being older, he's still stronger than Victor. He's also very wise. And so he's there if Victor, gets hurt, Oliver helps take care of him. And for this purpose, Victor has asked Oliver to go keep the concubine company to try and get in her good graces in the hopes that when she finally does die, she will be convinced to leave the house to Veritas so that we can expand the compound to take it.
Okay.
I'm just imagining Oliver as Alfred.
Yes, I was going to say, did you say
Basically.
Alfred?
He's basically Alfred.
I'll put that in my notes. Basically, Alfred. So how does Evie treat her servants?
Evie is very respectful to her servants. I feel like out in South Warren, there's maybe less distinction between the nobles and the commoners. Like, there's still, like...
Not
In my mind-
not in your house. Not in your
Okay,
station.
well-
You guys are way up in the echelons of nobility.
Okay. Well, Evie's main attendant, in my mind, is probably like the granddaughter or perhaps the grandniece of our governess, our nanny. She's probably in that family, so it's a family that we are associated with.
Okay.
So her main attendant, she treats almost like a confidant, like a friend, almost.
And who is your attendant with? What's their name?
Her name is Rowan. And she is, like, her official job is probably more like a handmaiden, but she's like the kind of the handmaiden who is, like, she's gotten very adept at picking up on court gossip because, you know, when nobles get together, their servants also get together, and then servants talk. And she's very good at, like, kind of ingratiating herself into those situations where she picks up and hears conversation coming out of the other noble houses. And Evie is very appreciative of those talents. So she gets, you know, sometimes Evie asks her for favors to do things like that. Like, she could be, she's like an ear on the ground.
How does Ekon treat his servants?
So one of probably the major reasons that Ekon has some tension between the rest of his family is his servants are practically treated like siblings. Given his tension in the house, they might be treated slightly better than some of his siblings.
Okay.
Ekon's servants are exclusively orphan children that ended up as wards of the house that Ekon handpicked, all roughly his own age, that he all pretty much implicitly trusts with his life. They are a cavalcade of... Most of them don't leave the grounds. His attendant, Auburn, is effectively kind of a ranger. She's a good hunter, good scout, and he has her currently on mess duty.
Okay.
And I think she's the same age as him. There'd probably be something romantic there, but who knows what's going on with that.
That would definitely be a scandal. All right, Edmont.
Sir.
Getting these animals squared away takes the better part of a couple of days. The problem being that the kennels and stables on the property have just been in a state of disrepair for a very, very long time. You've had to board some of the horses up elsewhere for a couple of days until some repairs could get underway. But you managed to take care of everything. Everything's squared away at the end of maybe the third or fourth day, much to Ruby's satisfaction. Evie, you went out procuring supplies, sourcing them from various stores and guild houses from around town, and you thought you had done a terrific job when you came back with quotes and brokered some deals, set up a meeting here or there. And when it was all done, Ruby didn't say anything to you, but you definitely got the sense that she was not pleased
What else is new?
with how it went down. Ekon, you're going to have to do a little bit of convincing. Nigel doesn't care whether or not you maintain a temple on site. Ruby doesn't want House Veritas in Brennaning to be seen as the overly pious, like ever watchful, a glory to air. This is the kind of thing that can draw awkward glances, especially in the Holy City where you're expected to do your prayer at the cathedral in public amongst all of the other houses and the commoners. Why do we need a place in our compound for private prayer?
Victor,
Well, I'm not looking to hold like services or anything, but I think it would look very good on us to be a little bit closer to the temple to show that, we are, in fact,
Victor thinks
doing our sacred duties of procuring things and locking them away correctly and communing with air for exactly what that entails.
And you're
Victor
not
thinks that
looking
might
to-
give the impression that we're compensating for something.
That's Ruby's, one of Ruby's misgivings as well. But she clarifies, like, you're not looking to hold service.
No, absolutely not. That's exactly where I was going to draw the line as well. It's for private prayer.
Okay. Ruby is not incredibly happy that you've joined the church in the first place.
Yes.
She does recognize that you're from a more minor branch of the house, and that sometimes those minor branches, especially her own siblings, because Nigel had 7 million children, will attempt to seek their glory and fortune elsewhere, and some do attempt to do that by joining the church. This is how she's judged you all these years.
Mm-hmm.
You recognized early you're not going to come to your fortune as a member of the house. You're too low born within the house, but you're going to do it in the church. She also didn't want you and your brother to come along to Brennanine. It was your parents that made that decision. They wanted to get you out of their house. They brokered some kind of deal behind the scenes with Ruby to bring you along. You're not sure what she gave them in exchange. It's all very hush-hush, even within the family.
Okay.
So you're going to convert... So this tower on the grounds, this is going to be a temple, then. Is that correct?
Do we want to use the tower? I would say the first floor would be the temple, and the upper floors would be the magical safe house, basically.
Okay.
If everyone else is okay with that, I don't want to claim the tower just for me.
Well, I think the main magical safe house is in the basement.
Yeah,
right?
right. No, I mean like the place where you go to prepare your rituals, like the quiet area where you can concentrate and whatnot.
Well, how many can we?
How tall is the tower?
Yeah, how tall is the tower?
Probably reasonable for it to be 3, maybe 4. Well, probably 3 floors and then a basement level.
Okay.
Because if you want a lab in the basement, I'm all for it. Again, the house magic and the magic there, as far as Ekon is concerned, are pretty intermixed. So
The only thing I have learned from watching you play an Artificer for 2 years is we need a safe place to store all of the acid.
The basement's probably not the best idea if it hits the walls.
Alex got up to some real dumb shit on that boat, didn't he? That
He
was
really fucking did.
not safe at all.
None of us asked any questions. Not a single question.
You were
Alice-
storing acid on a boat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
That
Well,
sounds
well,
a bad idea.
It took us
Gallons.
50
literal
something.
gallons.
50-something questions to look at him and go, wait, how much acid do you actually have? And the answer was a lot.
He had been using his downtime action to stockpile acid for like an in-game year, I think.
yeah, something like that. I had to do lamp oil too because the Lantern of Revealing requires oil.
But, yeah, no. I'm probably not going to do that.
I'm thinking one of those 2 houses in the back that's kind of out of the way.
So the good news is there's no shortage of smaller houses or common folk in and around the area close to Dead Rabbit Way, within eyeshot of your compound, who are looking to ingratiate themselves with House Veritas. They see your presence is going to revitalize the area a little bit. They're already good friends of Lord Bracken, who House Bracken has always been friends to House Veritas. And probably one of these lesser families has been putting up the children for the time being until construction can be done.
So who's in lot 36?
Oh, I don't care that much. I'm not totally worried about it right now.
I think, what does Ruby want prioritized? Does she want, like, for repairs, it sounded to me like she wanted the animal squared away first.
The
So
kind of work she's doing right now is if you have to bring her those questions and ask her, you're not the right person to be doing this job. She wants to delegate to her older siblings and her older cousins and trust that they could do the job without having to keep bringing questions to her endlessly.
well, I mean, like, okay, well, then I will say that, like, the first thing we'll do, because she made it pretty clear she wanted the animals taken care of, is we'll get them taken care of first. Everybody else is taken care of for the short term, right?
Oh yeah, no, nobody's gonna sleep in the street.
Right. So
Uh, But the children, Nigel's younger children specifically, are being housed at one of these lesser families just right across the road. Somebody who Lord Bracken is good old friends with, had tea time on Tuesday kind of friend. But they're having some difficulty in that it's a nice, lovely old couple in their 60s who's known Lord Bracken since he and his wife had their children here. And he comes with a story where he has to wake up 6 or 7 times at night to fill his chamber pot. And once or twice over the course of the night, he'll poke his head in on the children to see how they're getting on. He knows it can be a big deal to uproot a child's life and drag it across the country into a completely new setting. And once, over the course of the first week or so, Tenny was found to not be in her bed. She'd gotten up in the middle of the night and gone somewhere. And the first time this happened, he completely panicked and woke up his wife, and they searched the house top to bottom. They tried to do it quietly without letting the other children know what was going on. They eventually found her curled up outside in the back of the house near to where they have a cellar that goes down underneath the foundation where they store their wine collection. And she was curled up there on a cushion that she had dragged out from her room. And they woke her up, brought her back inside, and put her back to bed. And she was dirty, so the next morning they had to make sure to draw a bath for her. And then this happened 2 more times over the course of the week. And they haven't lost her yet. She's always in the same place. But they just kind of want to know, like, is this normal behavior for her? Is she prone to sleepwalking? Ruby thinks that on the journey down, she found a lot of comfort, Tenny did, sleeping with her head up against one of the wheelhouses that had come with you where her dogs were kept at nights. She didn't actually go into the wheelhouse to sleep with the dogs. That would be disgusting. But she said she found a lot of comfort, more comfort sleeping there than sleeping in like a weird cushion on the floor of a wheelhouse, which wasn't at all like her bed at home. She'd been doing this for a couple of weeks. Nobody was able to break her of it. And now it looks like she's doing it at this kindly old couple across the road. So Ruby kind of sets their fears at ease that this behavior is bizarre, but it's kind of been the norm for at least the past couple of weeks.
Victor makes a suggestion they should put a bell on her when she goes to bed.
Put a bell on her? Who do you suggest this to? To Ruby? To the old couple?
To Ruby.
Okay.
Evie just stands back, like she takes a couple steps back when you say that.
If we're concerned about her wandering off, let's attach a small bell so that when she gets up and starts to walk, we'll know.
Ekon is going to suggest putting one of the cat familiars in charge of watching her all night and wake up their master if she does anything other than that.
Okay.
Evie probably wants to talk to Tenny and see what's going on. Like, how about we just like cut through all cut the knot? Like, okay, talk to the kid. Why are you doing this?
So when you find Tenny, so Orson and Arlo, who are your other younger siblings, he's 15, so he's more or less a man grown, but they're getting on well with they're meeting a lot of other children in the area. They have lots of great stories. South Warren is a far away and very mountainous and very densely forested place. So you guys have lots of stories of feral animals and grand adventures that Nigel has been on. And probably Orson has been on 1 or 2 at this point. So they're making friends. They're doing kid stuff. Orson is being a little overprotective of his brother Arlo, who has a twisted leg, but nobody seems to be teasing him or bullying him. The only person doing any actual bullying is good old Denny. Denny and your older brother, Lugrin. They tend to vanish to the bars or the whorehouses for hours and hours at a time.
They're not helping with the construction, probably.
Lugrin is helping just enough that he only gets yelled at a little bit at breakfast.
Escape by.
Denny is giving no indication that he's going to respect Ruby's authority at all in the household. Anytime she tries to ask him to do something, he points out that she's not in charge, and then they bring it before Nigel, and Nigel doesn't have a hard hand on the subject. Tenny is always off by herself, though. She's always off playing with her own toys, and she always looks like she has just been crying. It's very clear that she misses home. She doesn't like the city. She doesn't like being away from trees and animals and things. So that's the state that you find her in, Evie, when you go looking out for her. Is anybody going with Evie to speak to the girl?
I'll go with her.
Victor will go.
Nah, that's enough people.
Okay. So that's the state that you find her in. And you ask her, she just tells you that the bed that they have her in across the street is lumpy and it's uncomfortable and it's too hot and she doesn't like it and she wants her own room back. She doesn't want to share her room with Arlo or Lorcan anymore. She wants her own room with her own toys and her own dogs. And she's just very bratty and very sullen.
So does she mention that she misses the trees and everything?
Oh, yeah.
So Victor will offer to take her to the park, which I guess is down in the southeastern corner of the city.
Oh, there's lots of areas in the city where you can find gardens and trees. Many of the houses, the great houses, will pride themselves on maintaining gardens on their land. It's just a kind of a dick measuring contest. Who has the nicest gardens? There's one area of the city that has never been settled, and it's this forested island here that you can take a boat out to. And there are some old religious reasons from even before the Holy Church was established here why this particular island is maintained as a garden in the city but is not ever settled or built upon. So there are places you can take her.
Okay, so Victor offers to take her through a garden tour of the city, ending up at the holy, magical, sacred island of trees.
Well, before you do that, I don't know that I necessarily am buying Penny's explanation. Like, she does. This just sounds like general childish brattiness for what seems like a very strange behavior. So,
I mean, to be fair, Tenny was always a little bit of a brat. She always isolates herself from other children. She's dutiful, but strange.
So this kind of behavior isn't necessarily that strange for her.
The sleeping outside is a new development. That only started on the journey to Brennanine, where everybody else had a comfortable wheelhouse with cushions and things to sleep in. She would sneak out and sleep curled up next to essentially the kennel house that her dogs would sleep in.
I mean, is she trying to get close to her dogs again? Is that why she's sneaking out at night?
Well, no, because to do that, she'd have to sneak onto your property.
Yeah, but she's sleeping in some other strange place now.
Yes.
She's sleeping near like a wine cellar. That to me stands out as very unusual.
So
There's no sign that she's drunk, as far as
We have her.
do you make these observations?
Yeah, but underground places on a holy city, like there could be things down there. That
Do we
do
have
not
leave
know
to take a look around the
property?
take a look around in the property and in the cellar itself?
Oh, and when you ask, I mean, if you ask the old couple for, their face lights up because they're very proud of their very old collection of wine and spirits, and it is a very well organized and well maintained wine cellar, secured with wooden doors that open up into the earth, and you can, when they open the doors, the tunnel goes down under the foundation of their house, and immediately you feel the chill from downstairs. And it's a very impressive collection of wine and spirits. And they assure you there's no way the child could be getting into the cellar, and there's nothing in the cellar that's out of place.
So
No,
as,
certainly not.
as you're making these observations about you don't really think her behavior is normal, Victor kind of makes a slight comment to you that, maybe she touched an unseelie artifact on the way over, and maybe we should keep an eye on her. But in the meantime, let's do what we can do to try and appease her. But watch her a little more carefully just in case she came across something she shouldn't have.
So Ekon was going to put a familiar on her.
Yeah, Alcon was going to get someone with a cat familiar to keep an eye on her.
Who has a
That
cat
seems
familiar?
like most appropriate.
How about we engage her, kind of not really mollify her, but give her something to occupy her time that is, her speed that she could be held responsible for.
What would you suggest?
Well, I've got all of these animals. I could really use some help with tending some of the not large ones.
Okay, and she does like animals. She knows all the dogs all the dogs and horses by name, and she doesn't
She could
get
also
along
help
as
have
well
children.
with the other stable boys. You could notice that she keeps her distance. And make me a perception check.
Certainly, sir. Had to double check my bonus because new character sheet, new rules.
Actually, it's an old character sheet. It's one we used 5 years ago.
That's a 7.
A 7? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seems to take to any task that you give her. She talks to the animals a lot more than she talks to other people. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But even though she has something to do during the day, it doesn't help her get along better with the other children, and it doesn't stop the sleepwalking. She still, at night, they make a point to go out and check on her, and they always find her in the same place. She always drags a cushion outside the house, next to the cellar door, lays down next to it, and falls fast asleep.
So did she agree to go on a little nature walk with Victor?
Yeah, and it does her some good. The first time you do it. The second time, all of the other kids want to go with you.
Well, the first time we do it, I want to use that time to kind of talk to her as we're walking about, what does she feel about the city? How does she like it?
No, she
not approaching her directly about the issues, just trying to get a general feel for how does she really feel about being here, what might be making her uneasy, without directly asking her.
Make an insight check.
We all can't fail. We totally can.
That's not true.
Not true at all.
So what is that, an 8 plus my bonus? So I get no bonus, so that would be an 8. We suck at rolling.
She tells you, gives you a very dutiful answer. She tells you that she likes the city fine and that she's doing all of her chores, but whenever you try to get the conversation going in that direction, she wants to change the conversation back to the gardens that you're walking through or the boat that you're about to ride on.
I think the next night, Evie is maybe just gonna watch the house and see what Tenny does.
So you're going to stake it out?
I think that is what I want. I also have my familiar is an owl who can see very well in the dark.
Okay.
That works.
So one thing that Victor is going to do whenever Tinny is not in her room for a period of time, he's going to go and search the room to see if she's been hiding anything in there.
In the room where she's supposed to be sleeping?
Yeah, where she's supposed to be sleeping.
Well, that room she's currently sharing it with her brothers, Arlo and Lorcan, who are both younger than her.
So if there's a period of time where all three of them are out, he's going to go do a little investigation of the room.
Anytime during the day is fine. You don't find anything out of place. I mean, Arlo might be squirreling sweets under a cushion or something. Very clean room. You guys have a governess named Elisabetta, who is old and stern and is raising all of Nigel's children correctly. She's also staying here in this house across the street because that's where the youngest children are. Her main opinion right now is that it's long past time that Ruby be got with child. that's neither here nor there.
Wait, is Ruby married?
She is.
Yes.
Her husband, Cormac. But they do not
What's
have
he
a
been
child.
doing all this?
Whatever she wants.
That sounds about right.
He has been working closely mainly with you guys. You guys are most of the senior members of the house right now. So he's been doing the same kind of work that you've been doing, whatever kind of needs to be done. But no, there's nothing out of place in her room. Some of her cushions are dirtier than the others because she's been dragging them outside. And you find some stuff that, like if Elizabeth had known that they had been dragging sweet cakes up here, you could probably get them in trouble if you wanted.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that.
Okay. But no, they're keeping up with their studies. Their workbooks are in order.
And has anybody gone to talk to neighbors about what Tinny does when she's over there?
Well, during the days right now, she's working with Edmont, with the animals.
But I mean, during the night. So Tinny, whenever night comes, Tinny, instead of sleeping in her room, goes across the street and goes to the neighbor's house and then hangs out with them and sleeps there.
Yep. She takes her evening meal there. They're basically boarding the children until their rooms in the manor are done. And when those rooms in the manor are done, she will have her own room again.
Yeah. So if no one else has done it, then Victor will go and talk to neighbors to find out how Tinny's adjusting. How does she like being over there? What is she doing? She's there.
And they give you the same kind of answer. She's very sullen. She gives short, curt answers to questions, but she's very polite and dutiful. It does seem like she cries a lot, but she likes to cry alone. She likes to be alone as much as possible. And at some point in the night, she'll wake up and drag a cushion outside. So that night, we have Evie staking out with an owl, or Jeannie staking out with an owl familiar. Do I have that correct?
No, it's Evie.
It's
Okay.
Evie.
Is anybody else staking out with Evie or just Evie?
I go with her. Like the entire time, I'm just whispering at her, like, "This is wasting time. What are you doing?"
It's like,
Come
no, something weird is happening. Like, I need to find out what's wrong with our sister. Like, the fact that our sister is acting strange is very concerning to Evie. She's very protective of everyone in the family.
Okay. So the two of you and your owl friend are staking her out. And sure enough, a couple hours after the evening meal would have been cleared away and all the children would have been put to bed, the lights in your own manor house have been doused. You do see her dragging a cushion, sneaking across the street, and then squeezing through two of the old rusted bars at the far, far southeastern corner of your plot. So near to the house where the concubine lives. Behind that would be where Edmont has established the kennels, and then the new stables are being built next to that.
This is not where we've been told she's been going.
It is not.
Okay, I'm following her.
She's been found curled up across the street on the cellar door here.
Okay.
But tonight she's crossed the street into your manor plot.
Okay, Evie tells her familiar, Daedalus, to follow her.
Okay, I hadn't had a chance to say this, but like, since we knew we were doing this, I changed so when we started the campaign, I had my enhanced arcane focus infused. Now I've switched it to goggles of night, so that's what I'm currently wearing. So I have dark vision at the moment.
Okay, so you're cheating.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. So at first you're thinking, okay, she's going to go spend time with her dogs. She's lonely. She likes her dogs, but she doesn't go into the kennels. Instead, she goes around behind the kennels, out of your line of sight. And the owl going up ahead, because you can see through your owl's eyes.
Yes. Yes, and that would give me dark vision. Right?
And you see her kind of squeeze her way in. It looks like she's just squeezing into one of the cornerstones in the old foundation of the building that Edmont has set aside to be the kennel. Some of the old foundation had to be torn away and replaced so new walls could be built. That's still in the process of happening. So from the owl's point of view, from up in the air, it looks like she just kind of disappears down into the foundation of the kennel. And she leaves, when she does that, she leaves her big cushion behind.
Evie's going to check out where the owl indicated to see is there's got to be something there. Like there's some kind of passage. There has to be.
So when you find the cushion, you move the cushion aside, and it is covering a very small hole that leads down under the stone. Like, you'd probably be too big to squeeze into it, but a 10-year-old could. And it's actually really easy to see because just inside the hole, maybe you could reach out with your arm and strain and pick it up. There's a candlestick that's lit.
But there's no tenny.
No, not right here. Not an eye shot.
Okay. Does the passage continue?
Squirrel your way down and poke your head in and strain. And yeah, there is a narrow passage that looks like an underground stone passage that had been partially collapsed. Probably long before this building was even built.
But it's too large for us to go in.
Yeah,
So-
this hole is
too small.
for you guys to squeeze into, but you would think Tenny would be able to squeeze in and out of it.
Okay, but my familiar could fit in there.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Sure.
You said the candlestick is lit. Is it a candlestick she brought with her, or is it like a sconce on the wall?
no, it would have been a candlestick she brought with her. It looks like it's
Okay.
set on the floor underneath the hole.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to send my familiar in there to take a look around. Like, the owl doesn't move very slow through a passage, but he can get in there.
Okay, give me a perception check.
With the owl's perception?
Yes.
Okay.
And for what it's worth, yes, you do. You gain advantage of dark vision when looking through the sight of an owl.
Don't roll this at advantage because it's hearing, not
Well,
sight.
owl gets advantage on all perception involving hearing or sight.
Well, then there you go. Roll it at advantage.
Okay. Gonna... Okay, so that's gonna be a 16, and yeah, I'm gonna go with the 16.
Okay. The passage is partially dilapidated. The owl goes down into it. There's not really enough space for the owl to take flight in this passage. Going forward a few feet, it branches off in a couple different directions, and you think this is the reason that she left a candlestick behind. Because down one of the passageways, you can see the light of a second candle approaching. And then you realize that Tenny is carrying it back, and she's moving sneakily.
Okay, so the owl, I guess, is gonna try to avoid being seen by her. The owl does have some stealth, but he can't fly at the moment.
Just, it can hop down a side passage for now.
Yeah,
And then
he's gonna keep watching her.
and she's moving pretty quickly, and when she gets to the little fork where it branches off in a couple different smaller passages, she blows out the candle, and she's barefoot and wearing her night clothes. She sneaks back up to the candle that she left at the entrance, and then she blows that one out too. Pinches the candles, tucks them into her night clothes, and then she goes to climb back up through the hole outside.
Where we are presumably waiting.
Like if you're whispering, like, so you can't see when you're looking through the eyes of a familiar. In case you
No,
didn't know that.
I can only use my senses or the familiar.
So, like, if you're kind of narrating what's happening in a whisper, I will like. If you tell me to,
Yeah, she's coming up. I say
if you
she's
tell
coming back.
if you tell me that we need to move, we'll move.
So you guys,
I think I want to confront her. I want to know what she's doing.
Okay.
So when she crawls up, she's going to find Evie and Eugenia waiting for her.
okay, so yeah, she climbs up through the hole, and she does have to squeeze through. And this is why she always looks dirty when she gets back to the house. And she's just in the process of tucking the candles into a fold in her big cushion and gathering it up when she sees the two of you standing there looking up over. I guess a good question now is, like, how authoritarian are you with your sister typically? You guys are, I mean, yeah, you're grown adults, and she's a 10-year-old. So how would she view you as far as being an authoritarian?
Evie is very protective, of her younger siblings. She tries to be understanding. She had, I think, probably a troubled childhood, so she's not hard on, but she expects them to behave properly, and this is very odd behavior, maybe even for her.
Also, unrelated, but Elizabetta's second big opinion about the family is it's long past time that Evie and Jeannie be married.
Well, Evie literally has a reputation for screwing up a guy's face for dishonoring her family, so I don't know how likely that is.
Maybe you'll find a man from Losteria who's into that kind of thing.
It's going to have to be someone who is... If she gets married, it's going to be someone who is not a coward, I'll say that.
We'll find
Okay, so-
an XP of Torment Giant's Bane.
Yeah, so...
No, I mean,
Evie's-
she's completely shocked, but, like, you caught her red-handed.
What you doing down there, Squirt?
And she kind of just stammers something out. You can see tears are starting to build up in her eyes. She just tells you that she's exploring.
Okay, sweetheart, you're not in trouble, but you need to tell us what's going on.
And she tries to avoid the question by blurting out that when she gets back to the elderly couple's house across the road, all the doors lock and latch. So she can't get back into the house, and that's why she's been sleeping on, like, next to the cellar.
Okay, so I guess at this point I'm going to play into, like, her idea, like, so what have you found? What's down there? What are you going down there to do?
And she just tells you it's, like, old tunnels that weren't on the survey. She said when Lord Blacken showed Nigel the survey of his plot on the first night you came here at the big dinner, she got to look at it. But these tunnels she found are not there, and she just thought that maybe everybody else was too busy to chart them, so she would have to go down and do it. And then
How
she
did you
thinks
find them? Sorry, continue.
And yeah, she tells you that she was helping cousin Edmont establish the dogs and was walking the perimeter and saw a part where some old boards had fallen, and then she indicates the hole that she climbed out of.
But she
Why-
was sleeping outside before she started
Yes.
helping Edmund.
This story is not that. Sweetheart, we know you've been doing this for a couple nights. How did you find these tunnels? You have to tell us the truth. If you lie to me, then you will be in trouble.
Make a charisma intimidation check.
Oh, finally a roll I'm good at.
Make this at advantage because you specified that you always expect your younger siblings to behave themselves.
Mm-hmm. And this is how she handles it. Like, if you're honest, that's fine. But if you lie to me, then we have a problem. Okay, that's not a roll. Well, does that count? That's gonna be a 22. And then okay, 22.
Okay. Well, you roll 2 dice and keep the higher. You don't roll 1 die twice.
Okay, sorry.
There are infinity dice on the table.
Okay.
Spawn as many as you need.
As an aside, is there a particular spot on the table that you like us to roll so that the viewers can see?
I mean, these dorks just throw their dice off the table anyway, so.
Okay, I'm just thinking about user experience or viewer experience.
Doesn't work when they took away where the dice teleport to the middle of the table anymore.
They don't?
No, they just
hang.
kind of glue to the space at the edge of the table.
Oh. That's actually a lot better for me. I like that a lot more. Does that work with your guys' little... Yeah, it does. Look at that. That increases my user experience. She tells you that she'll tell you the truth, but you can't tell Ruby because she'll be in trouble, whether she tells you the truth or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Evie agrees. I promise I won't tell Ruby. But if there's something down there that we need to know about, I can't promise that I will keep that a secret.
Well, she tells you that a few days after you left home, and she very consistently refers to South Warren as home.
Uh-huh.
A couple of days after they left home, that she found baby animals that their mother had died, and she's been caring for them.
Oh.
This must have been a month or two ago now, because it took you guys a very long time to travel to Brennanine.
Mhm.
And she's been hiding them down here because she knows that they're animals that Ruby doesn't like.
What kind of animals are they?
Let's send the owl down to look.
You said the owl down to look?
Yeah, because the owl and I can communicate telepathically.
Okay. So she tells you that they're rabbits.
Uh-huh.
And Evie, when you send your owl down and you find the space where she's keeping them, it looks as though she's been sneaking them food. And only a very particular kind of rabbit eats meat.
Oh no. What kind of like when she says rabbit, Eugenia perks up and goes and like you just like you like gets a panic look on her face. Like
Treble?
what kind of rabbit?
So is
Treble.
she has transplanted the killer rabbits from our homeland into Brennanine.
That seems to be the case, yes.
Treble.
Okay.
No.
This is entirely your fault. You're the one who
Probably.
suggested killer rabbits in a fit of pique.
Okay. So these rabbits are dangerous, and Tenny should not be handling them, correct?
Very much so.
Okay. Penny, sweetheart, you know these animals are dangerous. You cannot bring animals like that to Brennanine. If they were to infest the city, our house would be blamed for that.
And she starts whining about how you promised you wouldn't tell Ruby.
I'm not going to tell Ruby, but we have to get rid of them, okay?
And she
we don't-
bursts
we
into
do-
tears.
We don't have to hurt
And you're
them.
the worst sister ever. And now we're going to
Tenny.
take our break.
Okay.
We'll go ahead, get you coffee, get you bagel. We'll reconvene at about 4:30.